Here on Grin Reviews, history repeats itself as we take a look at Centipede on the Atari 2600. And what do I mean by history repeating itself? Well, if you remember when I reviewed Missile Command on the Atari 2600, I decided to disregard the manual and instead pretend that the game was about a popular sci-fi movie. Well, once again I've decided to side with Hollywood and choose to believe that Centipede is not what the manual claims it's about, but instead that it is Starship Troopers. Because when you're killing centipedes all day, I think you can agree that the only good bug is a dead bug. If you actually decide to read the manual though, supposedly the game is about a character called Oliver, who is a magic elf and has to defend his mushroom garden using a magic wand he's recently found against evil scorpions, spiders, and pesky fleas. Well, if you ask me, it sounds like Oliver has been sampling his mushroom garden a little bit too much. As you can see, if you follow the manual's description of the game, you play as this creepy little guy. That's Oliver right there, and he just looks absolutely terrifying. I prefer to believe that I'm playing as one of the cool-looking Marines in Starship Troopers. And interestingly, their uniforms were recycled for Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, where they were also fighting against evil bugs. So it just fits perfectly when you think about it. And you may be wondering right now, do centipedes, scorpions, spiders, and fleas all fit into the category of bugs? Well, I'm not an entomologist, so I'm not even going to attempt to answer that question. I'm just a humble video game reviewer and not even a very good one. So I'll leave it to you guys to debate about what is and is not a bug while I start to talk about the gameplay of Centipede on the Atari 2600. Firstly, I'd like to point out that luckily aside from the bugs that are characters in the game, there are no bugs in Centipede. I'm using the word bugs here to talk about not insects, but instead to talk about glitches in the game, which are non-existent as far as I could find in Centipede. The game runs absolutely smoothly, and as you can see, is absolutely gorgeous. As far as playing the game, it sort of kind of feels a little wee bit like playing Space Invaders. That is, it feels kind of like playing Space Invaders if Space Invaders had just been sampling some of Oliver's mushrooms. The game is absolutely trippy, hectic, and full on. In Space Invaders, your only attention really has to be given to the lines of enemy ships coming down in uniform. However, in Centipede, the enemies break up when you hit part of the Centipede's line and come in from different directions. There's also complicated pathing, so depending on how the arena falls affects how the enemies come down. You can use this to your advantage by making death corridors in which the Centipede will be forced to come down in a single line and you can pick them off quite easily. The manual refers to this technique as creating corridors. However, death corridor sounds far better, so I'm going to use that term instead. On top of this, your character can move up and down and left and right, as opposed to the very linear movement in Space Invaders. And further, unlike Space Invaders, where you only have to really worry about the one kind of troop slowly coming down, in Centipede you have to also worry about the spiders bouncing across the bottom of the screen and the fleas dropping down. Not unlike Space Invaders, occasionally a scorpion runs past which you can shoot for extra points, which kind of functions a lot like the spaceship in Space Invaders, where it's not a threat, but it does give you extra points. The spiders that are bouncing across the bottom of the screen give you extra points depending on how close they are when you shoot them. This really adds a lot of risk and reward to the game, as you're tempted to play chicken with the spider just to get those extra points. And something that really sets the game apart from, I guess, any Atari 2600 game I've played is there's not really levels, or at least it doesn't feel like there's levels. In Space Invaders or Asteroids or Missile Command, whenever you defeat the enemies on the screen, there's a pause and it goes up to the next level before you have to fight the next ones. However, this one doesn't feel like there's much of a pause at all and it just comes down. It feels like you're fighting waves as opposed to passing levels, and because of this it becomes much more of an adrenaline rush. You feel like you're never really getting that break until you finally slip up. When I reviewed Space Invaders for the Atari 2600, one of my main gripes with the game was that there wasn't enough variety. Well, this game definitely has variety covered. The other fantastically enjoyable thing about the game is it's the perfect mix of difficult and fun. Even after a week of playing the game, I was really bad at it, which means there's lots of room for improvement and lots of reason for me to keep playing. The only downside of the game is the game variants. You have the option for easy mode and hard mode, which is indicated by a teddy bear, which is rather cute, but there's no option for two-player mode, which is very disappointing. I always enjoy it when they add in two-player mode. Although, come to think of it, in games like Missile Command and Asteroids, the multiplayer mode is basically just playing the single-player mode twice, and whoever gets the high score wins, so you could just do that for Centipede, but it would have been nice to add a multiplayer mode into the game. Maybe for the sequel. But these very minor issues I have with game variants aside, Centipede is an absolutely fantastic game, and I highly suggest you head down to your local video store and pick up a copy of Centipede on the Atari 2600.